Good afternoon, Talisa. Why don't we begin by your telling us a bit about your background and also about the Cleveland University Heights School District.
Okay, so I've been in education about 23 years now, and I've spent 19 of those years as a school administrator. I've had the opportunity to serve as a assistant principal in a middle school, a high school assistant, and 2 principalships at a high school, a deputy superintendent, and now superintendent in my current position.
And when did you become superintendent of the Cleveland Heights University Heights schools?
I became superintendent. This is my 4th year, so in August of 2014. The time is flying by. I'm actually in my 2nd contract.
So you're not a newbie any longer.
I guess not. I guess I can't use the term that I'm new. That's done.
That's done. So tell me a bit about the district and the community.
Oh, wow. So Cleveland Heights University Heights is actually 2 communities, and we serve about 7 streets of another community. So University Heights is about 13,000 member community, 13,000 residents, and it borders Cleveland Heights to the west. And we have 750 students from University Heights that attend our school district. That community is a little different from Cleveland Heights. It's about 71% non-white and 20% black and 9% other. Then Cleveland Heights is actually an inner ring suburb of Cleveland, and it's the 8th largest city by population to the greater Cleveland city. It's about 44,000 residents.
Okay.
And it's about 52% white and 48% black.
Okay.
Yeah. And together we service about 5,200 students.
5,200.
5,200 students, yeah.
How many buildings?
We have 10. We have 7 elementary schools buildings, 2 middle schools, and 1 high school. Well, 11 if you count out alternative schools. So we do have an alternative campus. So 11 buildings total. Mm-hmm.
Now, when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that one of the challenges you're facing has to do with turnover on the board that I guess has recently occurred or is occurring.
Mm-hmm.
Would you tell us more about that?
Oh, yes. So when I started this journey, at a 5-member school board that had about total about 16 years of experience between the 5 of them.
Mm.
So I call them a very experienced board. And they kind of took me in and nurtured me and really, I believe, taught me how to be an effective leader because they had so much experience. So 2 of those board members left 2 years ago because of career changes, and their time was up, so they didn't run for re-election. And then the remaining 3 did not run for re-election this past November.
Oh.
Yes, because they had some other commitments, and they believed it was time. One had served 16 years, one had served 12 years, one 9 years. So they believed it was time to get members who had children in the district. And so it was bittersweet, but they decided not to run again for re-election. So I inherited 3 new board members in January, along with 2 of the remaining board members who were had only been on the board for a year.
So basically a new board, new 5-person
yes,
board.
A new 5-person board, correct. So they were not the board who hired me.
Well, tell me a little bit about the composition of the board. Who makes up this largely new board?
Well, you mean the as far as the what they do,
Professions,
their
backgrounds.
professions.
Tell me.
Wow, yeah. So great question. So of the 5, I have one is a business owner. This is his second year on the board.
Okay.
I have a early childhood administrator. She works in nonprofits. So this is her second year. And then my 3 newest board members, one is a teacher in another school district and a union
Not yours, though.
steward.
Another one.
Right, not in mine, in another, but he's a teacher and a union steward. One is a communications professional, and the last one is a small business owner. So we have 2, actually, yeah.
You've got a nice mix then on the board.
Yes, a nice mix, and 3 of the 5 have children that are currently in the district. So the last 3 who were just elected all have kids in the district, which is great. Which is great.
Well, it certainly leads to a special understanding of what you do in the schools.
Yes.
But a new board's a challenge. I'm sure you'd agree. And the very seasoned board that hired you, made you welcome, helped you settle in is gone. So how have you gone about developing your relationship with the new board? Tell us about your strategy for building a new partnership and the kinds of challenges you faced in doing that.
That's good. So what I did, I knew once the old board members shared with me their decisions, I immediately stated, okay, so what are some things that we can put in place to make sure that we had a seamless transition, because this was totally new to me. So one of the things that we did, we made sure with the old board that we completed a board handbook. We wanted to make sure that was done. And worked with the board closely on completing that, along with the Ohio School Board Association. And then we
what's
set
in the handbook, basically? What does it cover?
Oh, good. It talks about how to be a good board member. So some of the strategies that working with the board, I kind of took those when you look at your board policies. In the beginning of those policies, they talk about what does it mean to be a board member and the meetings, all of those protocol pieces. I put that in there. And also how some pointers on how to work well with the superintendent and the team. I subscribe to this newsletter called Board and Administrator. It's a supplemental, it's just a little newsletter, and it talks about some things that board members may need to be aware of and some things that are superintendent. So we have those leaflets in the handbook. And our strategic plan, the things that we're working on. So they have that there to always kind of go to whenever they have questions about them as board members and some of the things they can and cannot do, or should and should not do, rather. And then what's happening in the district.
So you prepared a handbook? Go on with your strategy.
So we prepared a handbook, and that was part of the old board. And then it set up a orientation with the new board. So we had the old board members with the new board members once they were elected in November. 2 weeks later, we had a transition orientation. So I asked someone from our School Board Association of Ohio to come in and facilitate that. So it was kind of the passing of the mantle, sort of speak. So that they had a chance to have a clear understanding of the expectations of a board member as new people, and for the new people to understand that these expectations were no different than what their predecessors had gone. Because there was sometimes when you get new people in, the new people believe that they're going to undo or do things so different from the old board. I wanted them to see that the things that the current board was doing were things that are aligned to the Ohio School Board Association. And so they had a chance to ask questions of the facilitator and of me and my team about the initiatives that were happening. So all of that happened in November. And
How
then
long did you meet?
we met 3 hours. Our retreat was an evening. Yep, it was 6 to 9.
And that included your executive team?
And my executive team as well, correct.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
did anyone, and I know this is kind of a tough question, but did any of these new board members come in with some specific issues they were really concerned about, either more or less negative, but any big targets and so on, agendas, if you will?
You know, they always have agendas, yes.
They do.
Yeah, so you think about their campaign platforms, and that's one of the things, too. I made sure I wanted to meet with all our board members, the candidates. So I met with all the candidates prior. So I wanted to really have an understanding of what they were looking for, what were their platforms, so to make sure that those things were aligned. And I think that's so important as superintendents and boards. You know, do you know from the very beginning that that person has a different agenda? And if so, how can you work with that person so they can understand that the work that you're working on now? So for me, I started my first year with a 5-year strategic plan that was implemented during the end of the first year. So the candidates knew that the strategic plan was the work. So I kind of made sure I crafted all of our conversations around our 5 strategic goals that we were working on, and thinking about the board goals that they had worked on prior. What are some things that they had some concerns about? So I kind of kept it in that realm, so it kind of prevented, in a sense, not prevent, but it kind of forces the candidate to think about the current work and not about their separate agenda that may not be aligned. Does that make sense?
Oh,
yes,
absolutely.
So I was very strategic about that because I didn't want to personalize or internalize someone that maybe had something so different from what we were doing, and then as me as a leader begin to focus and say, oh my gosh, this person is coming in with a totally different agenda. What does that mean? No, here's the work that we're working on. How can you help support that work? And if it's something else we needed to do, what is it that you think that we should, what else do you think that we should be working on in addition to?
So that's really a creative strategy. You actually met with all of the candidates, right?
Yes, all of the candidates.
Election.
Before the election, correct. Sat down with them at breakfast or lunch and just kind of had some conversations with them.
So did you have enough time to form any personal impressions about things like style and
yes, you know what, the one that I was
done?
Yes, the one that I was most concerned about was the one who was a current teacher. Because we know that Ohio is a union state, and when you're a teacher in the community, but yet you work in another community, you kind of know some of the things some of the work that's been happening in the community. And my second year here, there was a big layoff. We've had teacher negotiations. And so that person was very aware of those things that were happening. Knew why they were happening, and I aligned all of that to the strategic plan. Our goal 5, when we talk about, operational resources, and so I was able to align all of that up and speak to that. But I know that in the future there are going to be more negotiations, more levy campaigns, et cetera. And I didn't want that to be something negative. I really wanted the person to have an understanding of what we were doing and why we were doing it, and not come in as the person who was going to advocate for a group of people who he or she did not believe we had their best interests at hand.
Mm.
So I was most concerned about that person.
That's kind of a daring thing to do, to meet individually. Did any of this backfire in any way, or did you find yourself quoted, for example, in the campaign?
No, but
about that.
I didn't, but I know one, it was interesting, one person stated that they were really concerned about the community being heard, and they believed that maybe we didn't give enough opportunities for people to be heard, and they were going to be the board member to make sure that that happened. So I was able to share with that person that my first year we had a 5-year strategic plan, and we had over about 40 stakeholders who came, and we did surveys, we did interviews, and I was doing listening tours. That all happened my first year. And because of that, we were able to come out with 5 strategic goals and a new mission statement from that work. So there was opportunity for people to be heard through a whole year of those opportunities. So I had to make sure they understood that.
How did your mission statement change?
Our mission statement did not include anything about students focused on a career. It was all about we wanted to prepare students for college. And our community believed that we should have a focus on getting students prepared for a career, and there are a lot of good career choices for our students. So we changed that mission statement to talk about that we will provide challenging and engaging education to prepare our students to become responsible students and succeed in college and career. So we were very intentional about that.
So you held a 3-hour orientation, which was facilitated. All of your board members have an updated handbook. What other, now that they're on board, what other strategies have you been employing to build this basically new relationship with almost new board?
Yes, well, I encouraged them all. I actually signed them up to all of these new board member orientation sessions that the Ohio School Board Association was giving. And I even asked the 2 current remaining board members to attend with them as a refresher. So again, making sure that they were learning together and that they were learning the same information. I also, matter of fact, 4 of my 5 members just returned from the National School Board Association Conference in Denver. So I wanted them to go so they can network with other board members from across the United States, and then have them come back and say, okay, is this something that we want to attend together next year? So they gave me some feedback last week and say we absolutely want to begin to attending the National School Board Association Conference with me. And that's something my old board didn't do. Last year, I encouraged the old president to attend with me because I thought it was important that they attend national and local conferences other than our state conference.
That's a great idea.
And but what I did learn, I think, was a misstep. I should have went with them last month because it would have given.
Were you in San Antonio? Were you in San Antonio for the?
In San Antonio, yes, you're right. I'm sorry. Yes, it was Denver the prior year. It's San Antonio. Yes, I should have gone with them, but I was thinking, well, maybe this was an opportunity for them to learn with, with themselves and with other school board members. And I think I missed the opportunity for me to be there with them. So, in hindsight, I think I should have gone with them.
Well, Well, perhaps so, but you're young
Yeah.
and you've got a lot of opportunity.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, 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 yes.
Well, what kind of communication processes are you setting up with your new board? Do you meet? Have you developed a strategy for meeting individually with board members regularly?
Yeah,
Tell us
so
about
that's
communication.
a good one. I do send a weekly update every week, and it just kind of talks about, and I aligned it around the strategic goals. So I have all 5 goals listed, and I put bullet points of things that are happening in the district around those 5 goals. And I added a section on advocacy because that's something that we're focusing on this year, is for them to be involved in more of the advocacy and the policy work. So I'm giving them updates of policies and things that are happening around the state, and those things are affecting us. And also just some highlights. So we do highlights, events that I would love for them to attend with me, so they know every week what's happening in the district. So that piece has worked well. Something that was different was my meeting with my board president. So with the old board, I met weekly with the board president, or even sometimes the board president would call me almost every day just to check up on me. The new board, our current board president, has a different style where we meet biweekly with the vice president. So it's the 3 of us meeting biweekly. So, and there's really no touch base prior to those meetings. So that was very different for me to get
those
used
are
to.
pretty high-stakes meetings then.
Yes, and what
president and vice president. For how
correct.
long? Every couple of weeks.
7:45 to about 9:30 on every other Friday. Yeah. So, and you know, I have an agenda. I send agenda items, and I ask them for agenda items, and we're discussing some pretty high-level things and working through those, and they're good meetings. But and if I need to communicate in between there, I will send all 5 board members a note, email, or some information that I need to get to them. But it was very different not having that weekly touch base with the president, and that I had for 3.5 years.
Was your new president opposed to that, meeting that regularly?
Yeah. He didn't want to meet that regularly, and I think it was because I don't want to speculate. I don't know why, but I did, share that that's what happened in the past, but he didn't see the need to meet that often.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, styles differ, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, style's different, and what I tried to make sure that I didn't internalize that is that something that was about me and my leadership. It was about, the president and what they needed in their lives, and, the probably say, hey, I don't want to meet every week, and biweekly is enough. So that was different. So it was very different.
Well, what about individual meetings with the other members of the board? How do you handle that?
Well, actually, if they want to meet individually, we do. I thought about crafting those and kind of scheduling the individual ones. I decided not to do that and just kind of see how things go for this, from January to June. And then at our retreat in June, we kind of talk about communications and what does that look like, and see if they want more of time with me other than at events. So weekend events or weekday events, when they decide which ones they're going to attend, they attend with me. So I'm going to ask that question during a retreat. Is there more time we need together individually? What does that look like?
Do you use retreats as a regular tool, like an annual retreat?
Yes, we use that. I usually have my executive team come in, and we will, in the half of the morning, half of the day rather, we would go over our strategic plan goals, just so the board members can say, hey, this is what's happening around our goals and any questions that they have. So I love that, and that gives them an opportunity to see what's happening. They also have an opportunity to do building tours, the walkthroughs 4 times a year. So I've created a template for them, and they schedule with my office what days they want to go to the buildings, and they have a rubric, and we schedule it, and they go to the buildings and spend times in the classroom and meeting with teachers and the principals. So we schedule that, and then we talk about, because I want them to be able to, here's what's happening in our buildings, here's the curriculum, this is what you should see, now go out, so that they can speak to some of the things that they know should be happening in the classroom and should be happening in the building. And that has worked pretty well.
Well, it sounds like you've taken a very systematic and comprehensive approach to partnership building. As you look ahead, do you have any special targets you've identified or issues you want to tackle?
Yeah, I would love for us to set new board goals. I think those are important. I know we have our strategic plan goals that we're working with the district, but I think it's very important that they revisit the board goals. And so we're going to start that at our retreat this summer. So part of it is, they have we're going to work on some priorities. They want to schedule some, they want to create some priorities around advocacy and equity. But they also, I think it's important for us to revisit the board goals and to say, hey, how do these board goals represent the current board? Because these board goals that we have now, I think were created around 2008, I believe. So quite some time, yes, even before me. It's like, are these board goals relevant to this new board, and how do we need to improve those goals, and how do they align to the work and the outcomes we want to see? So we're going to be working on that this summer.
Excuse me, Talisa, how does a board goal differ from a district goal?
Okay, so that's a very good question. So the board goals should ensure that the district goals are happening. So I see them as inspecting. So they, for example, I make sure they are monitoring and program effectiveness. So if our district goal is to have every school to be an IB district, for example, International Baccalaureate District, then the board must make sure they are monitoring and assessing program effectiveness. And how are those programs? What are they doing what are the outcomes for our students? Is this something that we approved, that this program, a framework that we approved for our district, is it good for our kids? And then how do we know it? Are they paying attention to our graduation rate? So our students moving forward. So yes, the district, we have an outcome and have 90% graduation rates in our 4-year and our 5-year cohorts. But the board also must make sure, okay, are every student leaving this district competent and proficient? We want to ensure that happens, but how can the board have some assurances and making sure that happens? So I see it as it's kind of making sure the work is happening and the questions that they ask. And then your 5-year goals, your 5-year strategic plan may be revised, of course, and it may be different if another superintendent comes, another strategic plan, but what the board focus on stays consistent.
Well, do you, and you'll be happy to know that this is my last question.
Okay.
Your day will soon get better. You can get back to work. But have there been any particular problems or challenges during this transition, developing this new relationship with your board, with your new board?
With my new board, oh my gosh, I think the challenge, I think, is still trying to get to know them, because it's only been since January, and
Right.
it's now April, and it's still new. So I think they're settling in, and I'm still trying to figure it out. And I think, to me, I think will be the telling is I think the evaluation. So when it's time for my evaluation this summer, I think we're going to do it in June, I think that's going to really tell what exactly is the board looking for and how am I meeting those goals that they have in their mindset. And the feedback that they provide through that, I think, is going to really kind of identify where there may be some gaps and what I think they need and what they want as a leader.
So that
And then
is
from
a
that,
critical milestone.
yeah, I think that's going to be critical, and I think it's something that we talk about and something that we craft together. With this new board, there was something that was very different with the last board. So now we say, okay, these are the things that are important to us as a board, and then how do we make sure that you are facilitating and leading those things.
And that's going to be in June.
In June, yes, in June.
Oh,
So it's good, yeah.
We might have a follow-through podcast.
I know. Yeah, follow through, the evaluation from the new board. And I think if it's crafted well, facilitated well, I think it could be something that is good for not only the organization but the leader and the board, because I think the evaluation has to be something that provides growth for everyone, growth for the district, growth for me as a leader, and growth for the board. Because we know we have the same objective, and that is we want prepared citizens. We want our students to go out and do amazing things. We want a vibrant community. We want all of those things, but how do we get there, and how do we make sure that those things are happening? I think it's important. So, and I think that's how people improve. You improve and you learn and you grow together, but you have those open conversations. And I think that's the piece that's critical. I know that's critical.
Well, Superintendent Talisa Dixon, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me today. This has been a fascinating story of your transition with a largely new board. And I want to wish you a good afternoon and great rest of your week.